we've all been there, haven't we? That incredibly rare moment when the noise, the chatter in your own mind just seems to quiet down.
Hmm.
It might happen late at night, maybe a perfect summer's evening when the air is just right, still warm.
Or maybe you've just gotten over being sick, like a cold or something, and suddenly the world outside the window looks, well, impossibly bright and new.
Yes. Or perhaps you're just walking alone after being really deeply affected by, say, a piece of music, or maybe a chapter in a book that just clicked.
And in that brief, beautiful moment, this kind of mysterious and really radical thought just descends on you.
And the question is this: what if? What if we didn't always have to be as burdened, as sad, and as anxious as we usually feel?
Right.
What if that heavy cloak of worry we seem to wear every single day is actually optional?
That's really the core of it.
That is the mission of this deep dive, to investigate these powerful psychological chains that seem to prevent us from embracing lasting joy, even when it feels like it's right there.
We are diving into that feeling, exactly, that brief glimpse, that hint, really, of a possibility of joy on, a vastly different scale than what we normally allow ourselves.
Yeah.
It's those moments where we suddenly appreciate the beauty, the potential around us. The interesting faces of strangers, the way the light hits a tree, that kind of thing.
Moments where we actually allow ourselves to truly connect with other people, letting go of our default setting of reserve and suspicion and fear.
What if we could fully surrender to loving and also to being loved? I mean, the sheer potential in that thought it's intoxicating.
It is, but almost immediately the default sort of cynical part of our brain just slams the brakes, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's that voice that instantly says, okay, sober up. That's not reality.
Yeah, get real.
We're immediately confronted by the standard, almost exasperated arguments against sustained happiness. The world tells us, basically, that life is fundamentally awful, and it has fixed, grand reasons why.
And they sound so practical, so legitimate, don't they? It's the argument from necessity, really.
We have to earn a living, the economy's shaky, maybe our partner is, well, scratchy and annoying half the time. People can be mean.
Right. And don't forget the sheer, administrative burden of just keeping the house running, paying the bills.
Exactly. All that stuff, these are the practical anchors that just yank us right back to baseline anxiety the second we dare to feel too good.
Precisely. And then, layered right on top of those practical issues, is the existential philosophy. This life, this existence, it's fundamentally a journey of suffering.
Right? We believe that.
We didn't get to where we are, stable, functional, mostly surviving, by focusing on the upsides. We got here, we tell ourselves, because we trained our eyes on the downsides.
It feels prudent, responsible even.
It feels like the only sensible way to be. It's like the ultimate defense mechanism, isn't it?
Totally. If you expect the worst, you're never truly surprised, and you save yourself from that devastating shock of disappointment. It sounds like hard-won wisdom. But here is the pivotal challenge that this thinking introduces. And this is where we need to slow down a bit and really unpack the idea.
Right.
What if the reality we keep talking about doesn't actually demand anything so grim from us? What if the practical necessities like, yes, rent or taxes are real, but our level of sustained misery about them is, well, maybe it's inherited. Maybe it's disproportionate to the actual risk right now.
Okay. So the argument isn't that rent isn't real or that partners are always perfect.
No, not at all.
But that our deep-seated certainty of failure, our inability to tolerate uncertainty, that's the real problem. And it might have nothing to do with today's balance sheet.
Exactly. It completely shifts the responsibility, doesn't it? The block isn't external, it's internal.
Right.
What if the source of our inability to achieve a richer life is principally our own distorted psychology? It takes the problem out of the world, which is just complicated, messy, and puts it squarely inside our own heads. Where often it's simply outdated.
That immediately begs the question, though, where did we get this distorted psychology? Why are we so insistent on staying miserable sometimes, even when chances for connection and joy pop up?
Well, that brings us right to the core of this deep dive. This idea of the downbeat mindset as a deeply ingrained, learned loyalty.
A learned loyalty, okay.
It's powerful stuff because it's so deeply rooted in our childhood conditioning. I mean, many of us simply did not grow up in an atmosphere where joy was, well, either rewarded or seen as sustainable or even considered possible for very long.
Right. We learned early on that lightness was risky, dangerous.
Yeah. That natural childish appetite for just running around and giggling and having transports of delight, it probably died down pretty quickly because we noticed the emotional atmosphere around.
You pick up on it.
You do. Our parents, or maybe the adults raising us, they were often extremely worried themselves, or maybe profoundly angry, or just terribly sad. They were dealing with their own realities, of course, but to a child.
Yeah.
Well, that sadness feels like a universal law.
So we quickly internalized the message that to survive, we needed to keep our heads down, prepare ourselves for those long winters of emotional deprivation, as the source puts it.
And we became exceptional students of this downbeat mindset. It wasn't like we were taught a formal philosophy of sadness, but we attached ourselves to one anyway.
Right.
We learned to expect little. We learned that ambition was risky, maybe vulnerability was catastrophic.
And the key insight here is this idea of loyalty.
Yes. Without even noticing why, we developed into adults who remain fundamentally loyal to whatever was implicitly demanded of them in those early years.
Wow.
We are still wearing the emotional armor we needed to survive a battlefield that we actually left decades ago.
That is a fascinating metaphor. It suggests that choosing joy now, choosing hope, feels like a betrayal somehow.
It can, yeah.
Like if my parents were always worried and I suddenly stop worrying and start experiencing, runaway ecstasy, am I somehow betraying their struggle? Am I implying they were wrong to be so anxious?
Absolutely. That deep, quiet coaching we received when we were 7 or maybe 14, it imprinted an identity. It's the comfort of the familiar, isn't it?
Even if the familiar hurts.
Even if it hurts, it is known. We equate safety with that philosophy of low expectation. So to suddenly allow for success and connection that risks an emotional exposure we were taught implicitly to avoid at all costs, it feels fundamentally unsafe, even if there are no ongoing reasons for that terror in our present lives.
So it's not really the rent that locks us into the cycle of sadness.
Not fundamentally.
It's the loyalty to the 7-year-old who needed to adopt that sadness just to feel secure back then. That shifts everything about how we might approach solutions.
And that takes us right to the final necessary shift, the deliberate act of daring to be different.
Okay. So, if the source of our problem is this psychological loyalty to a past we couldn't choose, the adult question becomes, what if there are, right now, today, no ongoing reasons to keep holding on to sadness and worry with our customary energy? The battlefield has cleared, but we are still stuck in formation, maybe, waiting for orders that are never going to come.
And this demands a truly courageous act.
Yeah.
Almost counterintuitive. It requires us to grapple with that really provocative idea. What if we are not here to suffer? What if suffering was just a byproduct of circumstance, not some kind of destiny?
That is genuinely shocking when your entire identity has been built around, prudent suffering.
It is.
So if we are not here to suffer, then we must dare to become fundamentally different, more open to joy, and crucially, as the source says, able to bear hope.
Bearing hope. That's terrifying for the cynic, isn't it?
Absolutely. Hope means placing a bet on the future, a bet the downbeat mindset just guarantees you're going to lose.
But this reframing changes the entire way you interact with the world. It has to.
How so? Like, practically?
Well, for example, this psychological shift could change how we approach our social lives. We might start going into friendships, expecting satisfaction.
Expecting it, not just hoping for it.
Expecting it. Not hoping for it accidentally, but
Yeah.
consciously setting up interactions to succeed, maybe, rather than constantly scanning the conversation for evidence that the other person is disappointing or unreliable, like we're trained to do.
Okay, I see. And that application must be vital when choosing romantic partners, too.
Hugely. We need to start picking partners who subconsciously reinforce our childhood sense of isolation, or who kind of validate the downbeat philosophy we learned way back when.
Because we're attracted to what's familiar.
Exactly. Even if what's familiar is actually unhealthy for us now.
So if the partner we choose is always scratchy and anxious, it subconsciously confirms that initial coaching we received, that life is hard, people are disappointing, and we're right to be braced for impact.
Right. Instead, we must consciously try to choose people who allow us to explore that terrifying possibility of joy on a vastly different scale.
We have to intentionally, maybe forcefully, relocate our misery to where it actually belongs, a past we weren't able to choose.
Yes, we can acknowledge the pain of that past, absolutely, without allowing it to dictate the emotional climate of our present. That time is over.
It's about consciously allowing ourselves to become more regular visitors to those still very unknown and understandably terrifying uplands of joy. The fact that they are terrifying just proves how deeply ingrained that loyalty to sadness really is.
It does. The goal is to make joy feel less like some temporary escape hatch and more like a sustainable home.
Upholding that sadness can feel like a sacred duty, almost.
But it's a duty to the past. This shift acknowledges that we as adults actually have the power to choose the emotional climate of our lives now, regardless of the climate we inherited. That's the heavy lifting, really.
Uh,
Psychological freedom.
And this level of internal revolution, I mean, it doesn't happen in a day, right? And certainly not just by listening to this discussion.
Of course not. But the benefit is derived from every spur we can get, every conscious recognition that these chains are internal, they're inherited, not external and necessary.
Right.
Absolutely. The core struggle isn't really against the practical necessities of adult life, though they're real. It's against that internal, inherited psychological loyalty to sadness that keeps us playing small.
So here is the final provocative thought for you, the listener, to carry forward today. You now recognize, perhaps, that your default cynicism, that philosophy of low expectations, was something quietly coached into you in your early years. How does recognizing that origin story, that your sadness was maybe a strategy for survival back then, how does that change the way you approach your very next decision?
What specific small step could you take today toward bearing hope, knowing that the greatest barrier to joy might just be your long-standing loyalty to the past and not the actual difficulty of the present moment? That perhaps is the path toward those unfamiliar uplands. Thank you for diving deep with us.